Anywho, today in Review Land I'll be talking about the game Yggdra Union for PSP, which is an RPG with cutesy, chibified characters that was made by Sting and published by Atlas. It's actually a remake of the game's original Game Boy Advance version, and if that sounds familiar, then you've probably played Riviera, which was another Sting RPG with chibified characters published by Atlas that came out on the GBA, then was remade for PSP, though Riviera was actually out on WonderSwan originally. Plus, Yggdra Union is actually a strategy RPG, plus Yggdra Union is better. Now, when this game originally got out on GBA, I did happen to see it in the store, but after reading the back of the box, I put it down because it said card-based battle system, which turned me off because I'm sick of card video games and the only card game I play is Magic. However, when the PSP version was announced, I found out that it is not, in fact, a card game at all, which means the back of the GBA box lied to me. So I picked up a copy of the PSP version, and I'm glad I did, so let's get down to the review. The game follows the story of its main character, Princess Yggdra, whose ridiculously named country of Phantazinia was suddenly invaded by the neighboring empire, killing her parents and turning her into a fugitive, but not before she escaped with her family's royal heirloom, the holy sword Gran Centurio. She quickly meets up with a stray charismatic thief, Milanor, and one of her old knights, Durin, and decides to start her own little rebellion to take back her country from the empire. The story has surprisingly few references to Norse mythology for its main character being named after the world tree Yggdrasil, and while it does try to have a little depth, ultimately the story is pretty generic and has more than one plot hole where things are poorly, if not unexplained. So if you were looking for an intricate plotline, then I'm afraid you're out of luck. Side note, while we've already had the discussion that titanium lingerie is a bad choice of battle gear, so is a huge frilly ball gown and half a mile of hair. Unless you happen to be Milia Rage, in which case, can I touch you? Don't hit me! The gameplay, however, is where the game deserves attention, and it's actually fairly intricate, so it's going to be a bit tricky for me to explain it all, but let's give it a shot, shall we? The game visuals are reminiscent of Fire Emblem, with the battlefield being composed of a flat, top-view map that's divided up into a grid of squares, with your characters being represented by tiny pixelated sprites eternally walking in place. Upon entering battle with another unit, you'll zoom into another screen where you get to watch bigger, nicer sprites duke it out with each other. Before you get to do that, though, you have to deal with the whole card aspect of the game. Now, it isn't like an actual card game where you make up a deck of cards and draw them at random. The way it really works is that before the fight, you get to pick a certain number of cards, then at the start of each turn, you get to freely pick which card you want to use for that turn, with the game ending if you die or run out of cards, aka turns. Each card has a move number on it, which is how many total spaces you are allowed to move your characters that turn. So the concept of individual units having their own movement range has been thrown out the window. The cards also have an attack power, an ace weapon, and a special skill they allow, but I'll get to those one at a time. First, I'm going to throw you a curveball and tell you that there is no HP stat in this game. That's right, a role-playing game with no health points. I'm going to give you a moment for your world to come crashing down around you. Are you done? Good. Don't be too worried, though, because HP has been replaced with a stat called Morale that pretty much fills the same role. Every time a unit loses a battle, you get to see a pie chart where a chunk of their morale is subtracted. How much is dependent on the attack power of the winner, the gen defense of the loser, as well as the attack stat of the card you're using that turn. And an enemy or ally won't actually die until all their morale has been depleted, so it's okay if you lose a scuffle or two. Winning a battle will also increase the power of the card you're using, so you can work with whatever ones you want. However, morale can only be healed by level up, which will restore about a third of it, and by converting items into it between stages. Now, battles play out by watching a squadron of sprites on each side of this jagged crevice start with the attacking party, led by their leader, jumping over the rift to attack the other, who then comes back with a counterattack. The effectiveness of each is determined by their technique stat, which I thought was cool. The little dudes then stay on their sides of the line and hack away at each other without actually hitting each other in such a way that it almost seems to be poking fun at RPG games. However, most of what you do in battles is just watch until all of one side dies, which often takes a bit, and you have no direct control over what happens during the fight, so this could have turned out very tedious and annoying, if not for the fact that the PSP version wisely added a fast-forward function onto the game. Thank you. Though while you have no specific control on battle, there is a meter at the top of the screen, and by holding back or forward you can send them into passive mode, or aggressive mode, or passive-aggressive mode. Passive lowers your attack but fills the meter, while aggressive raises attack but drains the meter. Once the bar is full, you can also use the special skill that comes with the card you're using. Like Fire Emblem, there's also a rock, paper, scissors order with weapons, though this game has added a few more branches onto that concept. The last thing I need to explain is the namesake of the second word of the game's title as well as its subtitle, We'll Never Fight Alone. That thing being unions. The way it works is that when a character starts a battle, they have a 2-square range around them that goes in an X shape for males and a plus shape for females. And any fellow units that are in that range will take turns fighting against the enemy and the units that they union together. Later on, each character in the union also has their own 1-square range as well, so you can invite even more of them to the party. Now, you're only allowed to attack 1 time per turn, which sounds annoying, but with proper planning you can easily get all your characters in on it, and figuring out what order to arrange them in to fight the team of enemies you're up against is a big part of the game's strategy. Who starts the fight is also important, because in order to use a card's special skill, the initiating character has to be an ace, which means that they use the same weapon as indicated on the card. Once that's been fulfilled, all the other characters in the Union can also use that skill, though some cards have extra criteria. Phew, glad I got all that out. So as you can see, the game sounds pretty nifty and definitely takes a new spin on the old SRPG formula. However, here's a list of things in this game that are annoying. 1. There is no undo move command. If you stick a character somewhere, even without attacking, they're, well, stuck. You can't move them back like in most any other SRPG, which can mess you up with all the character arranging you have to do in this game. 2. You level up in this game very slowly. The max level is only 20, and not get to 20, then promote, then 20 again, just 20. Which means you'll be leveling up about once every hour and a half. What is this, a monthly payment gorging MMO? 3. While you can equip your characters with an item that will break after a set number of maps, once it's on them you cannot take it off, so there is no or re-equipping, and when you have to have certain characters have certain equipment on certain stages to get certain items, you have to know about it beforehand and plan several stages in advance or you can't get it. 4. If one of your characters dies, they get a 0 reset, which means they lose all their hard-earned experience for that level and their morale when they come back is 1. However, with proper planning and suspend saving, which does not erase when continued, thank God, you should never have to deal with it. 5. I think they could have done a better job in the variety and selection in the characters you get to choose from. I mean, your party size for the whole game maxes out at 5 characters, which is rather low for an SRPG, and the game offers 9 characters for you to choose from, which sounds like plenty, but once again the execution gnome shows up to kick the looks good on paper fairy in the teeth. So let's do some math. The game always forces you to pick Yggdra and Millinor, so that's -2. Russell is like Yggdra, but clearly weaker, and Cruz is like Elena, but clearly weaker. So they're just junk characters that we don't really need. So now we're down to 5 you can pick 3 from. You only get 1 mage, so of course you're going to use them, and 3 of the characters, Russell, Cruz, and Mistel, are hidden characters you could likely miss. So if you don't find at least Mistel, then your only real decision for your team is which spear user you're going to use. I mean, why the hell couldn't we keep Keelie as a character instead of her just popping in from time to time? Just including her would have given us a second axe user, a second mounted character, a second character with large units, a character who can fly, and a character with green hair. Anyway, Yggdra Union was an enjoyable experience for me. My mind wasn't blown, but it is a cute and engaging game that's got charm and gets lots of points for looking at the SRPG genre from a nice new perspective. The music is decent, which means it's already much better than the music in most SRPGs, though while there are voices in both English and Japanese available, they're highly meh on both sides of the coin, so pick your poison. It's about 35 to 40 hours long, so it's got solid playtime, though the ending could have been better on many levels. But if you've got a PSP, I recommend this game. It's fun, it's unique, and it's one of the things the PSP has done right is to have a whole bunch of good SRPGs out for it, which this now included. It's without question the best game I've seen Sting make, and I hope to see the company continue to improve their design. Thank you, and good night.